With this question of what is our defense going to be when we're face to face with Jesus, we cannot give as an excuse the fact that there was no one there supporting us. And I'd like us to turn, please, if you would, with me to Acts chapter 2. And I'm not looking for a Pentecostal experience, because I understand that that was a historical event that was supposed to take place only once. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, Acts 2:1, they were all with one accord in one place. That is what the original King James Version says. But I want us just to back-check a few of these things. They were all with one accord. 3661 in Strong's. If you would, with me, please. This is for your benefit, not for mine, because I already know these things. 3661 in Strong's is unanimously, from a composite of the base of 3674, which says Hodos, at the same place or time, and (2372). If you check that one with me as well. 2372. Where it says passion, as if breathing hard. So if you put those two roots together, you're going to get of the same passion. There was a passion that was in them that was driving them. There was a breathing that was common. They were breathing in the same spiritual air. They were in the same spiritual place, in the spiritual ages. And because of that, they had one passion. They were in one accord, if you like, but they had one passion. They had a burning desire to do God's will, which is represented by two other words in this verse. The first one is epi, 1909. If you check there with me to make sure what that word is that was used in the original text. Epi, of direction towards. I don't know if you're seeing that with me on the 5th. Do you see it? Of direction towards. It's not a matter of being in the same place, but it's having a burning passion that's taking them towards something. I wonder if you're there with me. It's not about being in one place, physical, as the King James presents it. The other word that's very important is the word autos, that was translated as one place. If you would go there quickly in Strong's, you'd see that it says backward, baffling wind, or the move of Christ. So when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with the same passion, with the same burning desire. Not a passion that is sleeping or a slight passion, but they had a burning passion, a driving force, if you want, something that was propelling them onwards in the direction of the move of God. They were caught up in this move. Now, I want you to pay attention to the fallacies of the translation. It's not in, and it's not one place. It's in the direction towards the move of God. This should be underlined. You should pay very much attention to this fact and keep it in mind. keep this wrong translation in mind. Because even though it sounds nice, it sounds like you can preach on it, it says a lot more than just being in one accord. It's not just being in one mind. It's having this burning passion that you're breathing the same spiritual air, because they were all, these 120 were in the same atmosphere of the spiritual ages, and that is what had them caught up in their individual moves, making this one move of the 120, that they were caught up in one move. They are brought together by Jesus Christ. It's a lot more than just being in one place. Now notice that they translated autos as one place, and one place has nothing to do with the original Greek word that was used in this verse. I wonder if you're there with me. I want you to remember that word, autos 846, because we're going to come across it again. Go with me please to Romans 15. The thing that is so sweet about Jesus Christ is that, and this is really the absurdity of it all, that Jesus Christ has to persuade us to receive our salvation. That he has to persuade us to receive something that's already there for us. All we have to do is reach out our hands and take it, because it's something that has already been done. The work has already been done. In the eyes of God, everything is there. On the table, if you want to be religious and call it that. The food is on the table. All you have to do is reach out, take it, and eat it. It's there for you. All you have to do is reach out and take what Jesus Christ is offering you in himself. He has to persuade us to go along with him. Like in our ignorance and our misunderstanding of who God is. Like we don't know who God is. We don't know what's good for us. God wants to give us what we need, but it does not coincide with what we think we need. And therefore, he's not going to give us what's not good for us, and he's going to restrict what we get according to that which is good for us. I want to turn to Romans 15, please, and 6. And, it's not now, and the God of constancy, not the God of patience, my brothers, the God of constancy, the God who remains the same, the God who does not change. Why? Because he exists outside of the realm of natural time. Therefore, he cannot change. He's a God who is constant in his glory and in everything that he does on the other side. Who is with me? Romans 15:6. And consolation. Now, by now you should understand and recognize this number, 3874, the Strong's number that represents the Greek word that was originally used by Paul. And if you turn to the lexical aids with me, please. 3874. Paraclete, from Paraclete, 3870. The act of calling towards. Paraclete is not a matter of consolation. It's not a matter of comfort. It's not a matter of making you feel good. It's a matter of calling you to the side of God. And the God of constancy and of our drawing towards him, towards himself, give you to be like-minded. Now, notice, I want you to notice these numbers. It's 54:26. If you go there with me, please. In Strong's, you see it says, phroneo, to exercise the mind, to entertain or have a sentiment or opinion. I wonder if you're there. There's no collective aspect to this word, phroneo. It speaks of to have a sentiment. There's nothing in it that says that it's more than one person who has that sentiment. The like-mindedness has been supposed by the use of the word autos in the original, which has to do with what? With the backward baffling wind, with the move of God, that hopefully we will be caught up in. Grant you, you cannot use phroneo, you cannot use the Greek word phroneo to indicate like-mindedness. It just seems to fit, and therefore they used it. What this is saying is that if you put that word with the other word in the verse that is represented by the number 240, you can introduce the fact that we have a sentiment one towards another. Are you there? But it has to do in relationship to our being in the move. You cannot forget that part of the verse, that we be caught up in the move of God. And that fact of our being individually caught up in the move is not just going to draw us to God, but it is going to draw us towards each other. So if the church is not being drawn in closely into a body, then what is it that we can assume about the body or the members of the body? What we can assume is very clear, that they're not in the move, because if they were in the move, they would have been brought together, because that's the purpose of God. Who is here? And the God of constancy and our drawing towards Him give us a sentiment one towards another, from being in the move, uniting us with Jesus Christ. If it's uniting us with Jesus Christ, if this move is uniting us in Jesus Christ, if all of us are in Jesus Christ, that means we're all together. We're all in the same spiritual realm that Jesus requires for us to be in. And that means that we're ministering one to another, being in the body, that ye may with one mind and one mouth glorify God. I wonder if you're there. It is when we are in our proper place in Jesus Christ, because we have submitted to a spiritual sequence of works that is manifesting itself in a physical sequence of works, then and only then are we said to be glorifying God. If you're not in submission to God, then you cannot see Jesus Christ high and lifted up. It is only when you're submissive to Him that you can see Jesus Christ high and lifted up. Not only that, it is only when we're in submission to Christ and are spiritually connected to works and to Him that we can inspire others into the spiritual ages. Who is there? In that sense, we are glorifying God because we are showing others Jesus Christ. Not forgetting that the Holy Ghost must be instrumental in this, because He's the one who's going to translate you to see Jesus high and lifted up if you are in your course. The fact of the matter is, if you're not in your course, then you cannot be inspired into the spiritual ages, and you cannot understand the physical teaching. And therefore, you're going to take the physical teaching as the end in itself and not the means to an end, which is being inspired to see Jesus Christ on the other side. Now, there is something else that's rather shocking in this verse. It comes towards the end of the verse in 15:6 Romans. Even the Father, no, I have taken off. I have put a line, I've scratched off because it did not come in the original text. I wonder if you're there. Therefore, if you scratch off what was not there, then what you're going to get is that we might glorify God with our mouth in a physical sense, with our vessels in a spiritual sense. Even the Father, that we might glorify God, even the Father, our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, it's up to you, take it how you want, but it's all here, it's what Paul wrote, and it is what I'm reading to you. Who is there? It's very simple. What I've been saying to you is really very simple, and you ought to be following exactly everything, not exactly part, but exactly everything that I've been saying. If there's something you don't understand, please let me know so that I can expound on that point. But it would be helpful if I can have a specific question, because I can't function and repeat the entire teaching. The purpose of the physical expression is the spiritual work it shadows in the Rima age. And the reality that the theosebes, the physical expression, affords others an opportunity to be inspired into the spiritual ages. The purpose of the physical expression, the purpose of my teaching you, the purpose of my teaching you, it's not so that you would remember what I'm saying, but rather that you would be inspired before Jesus Christ so that he can declare himself to you. The content of what I say is not as important as the content of what Jesus Christ declares to you himself. What I say is secondary to what happens after you're inspired into the spiritual ages. But you have to remember that I'm only functioning in what Jesus has shown me for me to function in. And you have to deal with what I am saying physically as well as what Jesus Christ is saying directly to you. The purpose of my teaching, or the purpose of any physical expression, including the Bible, the Word, is to communicate the essence of the spiritual work originally worked in the Rima age, and to allow you access to Jesus Christ. I wonder if that's pretty clear. The physical expression, however, can become an empty form, a useless form, if those who are receiving the physical expression receive it as if it were the thing that Jesus Christ and God desires us to know and experience. The physical expression is a form. If you take the teaching in its physical form and embrace it as a thing that God desires for us to know and experience, we cannot ginosko, we cannot experience a physical expression. We can know and have mental knowledge of a physical teaching, but we cannot experience a teaching, whether it be words or inactions, because it is someone else's actions. Webster says experience is from the Latin experire, to try. To experience is to try, and this is the word ginosko that Jesus uses in the context of what I'm describing to you. That we experience things that are on the other side. To experience is the act of living through an event. This is what Webster says that experience is. It is the act, experience is the act of living through an event. What Christ wants of us is that we experience, we ginosko, we live through our original spiritual creation that took place before the material creation in the Rima age. That we be aware of it. It's already done. Jesus Christ has already produced the fruit, and he has plucked it. He has picked it off the tree. He has produced it himself. He has done the work. And the reason for him plucking it, why do you pluck fruit? Why do you pick fruit? So that you can eat it, or you can offer it to someone else. That's the reason you pluck fruit. When there's a lot of fruit, you can't eat it all yourself. You have to share it. It is plucked fruit. It is fruit. It's karpos. It's fruit that has already grown on the vine. It's fruit that has already been plucked. And it is fruit that is being offered to us now. The work has already been done. It has already been completed. What Jesus Christ desired to make, he made before the material creation. The material creation was a footstool. It was something that God created in order to complete and to bring into an existence, even physically, the things that he had manifested on the other side. The physical creation is a way that he proved us. It's a way that he used in order to complete our creation. I wonder if anybody's still here. What Christ wants is that we experience, that we live through our original spiritual creation that took place before the material creation. That we be aware of it as we live here. Why would he want us to be aware of it? So that we can live out who we are. So that we are conscious of who we are on the other side and we live it out. That's the reason why he offers it to us in the declaration, so that we can come into contact with who we are in Jesus Christ on the other side. Christ wants us to experience, to live through all the spiritual works that were necessary to create us as an original spiritual creation of the Rima age. Christ is not interested in us sharing a physical experience of another physical being, but that we share the spiritual experience of Christ as he worked spiritual works in the spiritual ages that culminated and climaxed in our creation as spiritual vessels, as a finished spiritual work prior to the material creation. And the sad thing is that Jesus Christ, because of our physical condition, has to persuade us to do what is right. He has to convince us. He has to corral us. He has to, shepherd us into the sheepfold into the spiritual ages. He has to corner us. The shepherd has to corner us. He has to put us in a place which we cannot come out of physically, so that in the end we perform his will. He has to corral us. He has to squeeze us in a place so that we're not able to come out, because if we were able to come out, we would surely come out because of our moral depravity. Who is here? The gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news of Jesus Christ, is so mind-boggling. It is so rapturous. It is so glorious. It is so marvelous and wonderful. If we could just understand that all we have to do is take it. Reach out and take what is already there for us. It's already there. He's showing it to you. All we have to do is submit to it. Only one thing is required of us, that we stay in our assigned course. That's all. Jesus Christ has made it so simple for us. What is the move? What is the move of the Lord? What is the backward, baffling wind that takes us away from the physical condition? What is the move of Christ? Is the move of Christ a physical thing, or is it a spiritual thing? What does what we know about Christ teach us about the move of Christ? Is the move of Christ the sequence of physical works, Hodos, Theosebes, that constitutes the physical way that ends in our salvation and deliverance from the physical condition in preparation for the next life? I don't understand why we as men have so much difficulty in comprehending the way of the Lord, in comprehending, for example, the physical way, in comprehending that the way is constituted of the addition of all the physical works that we're expected to function in. That all these works is the way. I don't know why we have so much difficulty dealing with that. That the way is not a physical way like you're walking down the road, but that the way is represented by all the works that we are supposed to function in, that shadow the parallel spiritual work of the reimage. I don't know why we have difficulty with that. Why we have difficulty to understand that the way is a series of works. Forgetting all the times that we miss out in between, that God forgives us those times. I don't know why. Why it's difficult to understand that the spiritual way is actually all the works that Jesus Christ worked in order to create us as a vessel on the other side. Because that is really what it boils down to. Is the move of Christ, the sequence of spiritual works, Hodos, Logos, that Christ worked to create each individual spiritual creation in the Rima age. Is the move of Christ an individual perspective? Is it like what he did in order to create one individual being? Or is the move the general creation, the total spiritual creation? What is it? Is the move of Christ the summation, the addition of all the individual spiritual creations that took place in the Rima age? Is the move the entire process of the spiritual creation that took place before God lifted one finger to create 1 ounce of dirt? I want us to turn to Romans 1, please. Romans 1, 18, 19, and 20. We may as well read 21 and 22 as well. Now I'm going to take it in its King James Version form. In the form of the King James Version, I'm going to expound slightly on it to show you what the English text suggests, and then we're going to dig to see what Paul really meant by looking at the original language that Paul used when he wrote this letter. Romans 1:18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God had showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Just reading in the English text, what this is suggesting to me, I don't know about you, but what it is suggesting to me is that these men who hold the truth in unrighteousness can understand the things that are on the other side by looking at physical things. That is what that is suggesting to me. Maybe it's suggesting something else to you, but it's very clear from verse 20, for the invisible things of him are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. So you look at the things that are made, and you can see in those things, in a method that is purely relying on your senses, on your physical senses, and not on God. That is what this is suggesting, that we can see the things of God, that we can see the beauty of God in nature. That is what this is saying to me. And people use it to say, well, we can look at nature and we can see the beauty of God. But that is not what this verse is saying in the original language. It's far from it, because of the use of words that shed light on the essence of what St. Paul meant when he wrote these verses. One of the words that we need to look at in verse 19 is the Greek word autos. I don't know if you remember that, but it was translated in Romans 14 as indicated something about like-mindedness. I wonder if you're there. Also, in Acts 2:1, this autos, or backward baffling wind, was translated in Acts 2:1 as one place. I wonder if you're there. I mean, how on earth can you take one Greek word and use it to describe such a diverse plethora of things? How can you use one original Greek word to say so many different conflicting things? We're in Romans 1. Notice in verse 19, autos, or the move or the backward baffling wind that we are hoped to be caught up in. Autos was translated as them in the first instance on the first line in verse 19, and then them the second time. And I want to indicate to you that both times it is speaking of the move. Of the move of God. Now we need to define that move. We need to narrow it down to whether the move is referring to one that is physical as it manifests itself in the world, or whether this move is a move that is spiritual. I wonder if you're there with me. If you look, there are two words that indicate to us that what is being communicated is something that is spiritual, since it speaks of a spiritual communication. I'm going to tell you in a minute. If you are talking about something that is physical, then you would use the Greek word eido, 1492, to indicate that we can know it with our mind, or we can see it with our senses according to the lexical. Are you there? But it does not use the word eido to know or to see with our senses, with our eyes. It uses two other Greek words. The first one that you need to look at is the one that was translated as manifest. It's 53:18 and 53:19, which was translated as showed. Do you see those two words in verse 19? Okay, then I want you to look at the Greek for 53:18, please, if you would. Phaneros, from 53:16, and if you look at 53:16 is phaino, from the base of 54:57 to lighten. Look at 54:57 as well. Phos, light, luminousness, the fact of a spiritual communication. Are you there with me? Phaneros, the word translated in verse 19 as manifest, is not manifested in a physical way, but it is shining and apparent. Look at 53:18 in Strong's. It's not externally. It has to do with the fact of a spiritual communication. Now, if you have, if you have a spiritual walk, the only way that you can communicate a spiritual walk is by a spiritual communication, because you cannot in fact communicate something that is spiritual by a physical expression. You have to use means over and above a physical expression. Who is there with me? Phaneros, therefore, the word that is used in verse 19 and translated as manifest is really spiritually communicated. Who is there? The second word that we're looking at is 53:19, which is phano, or from 53:18, the word that we have just discussed, to render apparent, showed. But also, since it's based on phaneros, it has to do with a spiritual communication. It's not about a physical manifestation. Who is there with me, please? I also want us to check on the word 1360 that was translated as because. (1360) DOT, on the very account that, or inasmuch as. It is fair to say because, but that's not what the original Greek word meant. The original Greek word meant inasmuch as. Who is there with me? Are you looking at the term? On the very account that. One more word that we need to look at is 1110 in the lexical. We got to do this thing totally so that you're familiar with every single word that is here. 1110 from 1097. Ginosko, to know by experience, well known. How many of you are there? Inasmuch as on the very account that, or because if you want, they have known and experienced God is spiritually communicating by revelation to them. I'm dealing with the first part of verse 19. Inasmuch as, or on the very account that, they have known that God is spiritually communicating by revelation. Now, it is obvious that it's speaking about these men who hold the truth in unrighteousness or in injustice. At the end of verse 18, it's referring back to those men. Now, what is God communicating or showing these men? How many of you are there? It is understood that the people that are being referred to in verse 19 is referring to the men in verse 18 who hold the truth in unrighteousness. What does it mean to hold the truth in unrighteousness? What is the truth? The truth is that which Christ has shown us that does not change, that exists on the other side. To hold that truth, that knowledge in unrighteousness or in injustice, to treat it unjustly, is to twist what we see, is to pervert it, to subvert it, not to continue to hold it in ourselves for exactly what was shown to us. Who is there? It's very plain. Starting from verse 19 again. Inasmuch as, on the very account that, they have known that God is spiritually communicating, meaning by revelation, not by physical knowledge, not by the physical impartation of knowledge, but by the spiritual impartation of knowledge. Inasmuch as they have known and they have experienced, it's over and above head knowledge. They have experienced the move of God. They've experienced Jesus Christ. They have experienced the things of God that they have been connected to that exist on the other side. They have known and experienced that God is spiritually communicating by revelation to them. What? What is God showing these men? The truth that they have twisted. Who is there? You sure you're there? Is it clear to you? I don't want to move on unless it's clear to you. Starting again from verse 19a at the beginning. Reconstructing the verse. Inasmuch as they have known that God is spiritually communicating to them the truth. What truth? The truth that he has shown to them, that they have experienced. How does he manifest this truth to them? It says it at the end of this sentence, before the semicolon. 17:22:8:46. The truth that comes from being in the move. They were in the move. They were in the physical and the spiritual sequence of God. They were in Hodos Logos and Hodos Theosebes. Inasmuch as they have known that God is spiritually communicating to them in the move, it goes over and above just head knowledge. It goes over and above just knowing what is there, because the term used expresses an experience. And therefore these people it's not just that they have had knowledge of it by revelation, by a spiritual communication, but by the same revelation of Jesus Christ have they been connected spiritually to works that were there, that belong to them, that pertains to their spiritual creation on the other side. Who is there with me? It's very clear to me. Dealing with the second part of verse 19. For God had showed them spiritually what? The move. You see, the first part is not just speaking about having seen the declaration, because it is about an experience. So the first part deals with the fact that they were connected to things that pertain to their spiritual sequence on the other side, because God had showed them the declaration and the part of the move that pertained to their spiritual creation. This first part deals with their spiritual connection, which is made possible because God had showed them knowledge of that work in the declaration. Isn't that plain? It couldn't be plainer to me. Verse 20, and this is the best part of it, because this seals the final nail in the coffin of the religious ignorance that is rampant and prevalent in the church. Verse 20, for the invisible things, not of him, it's autos of the backward baffling wind, the invisible things of the move of God. No, the invisible things of the move of God can't be physical things, because they're invisible. So it's speaking, the move speaks out essentially. The move speaks essentially to addresses specifically the spiritual sequence that does not exist in the physical sense, because the invisible things, not of him, not of God, but of the move, are clearly seen. I want you all to deal with that first, and then we'll get to the part in the middle. They are clearly seen. I mean, can you see that it says, for the invisible things of God, if you can't deal with of the move, that the invisible things of God are clearly seen? Can you see that? Even in the King James Version, can they hide it? They try to hide it by the rest of the verse. Are clearly seen. I want us to just dig and see what this Greek word for clearly seen is. 2529 in Strong's. It says, not to clearly see, my brethren, but to behold fully. It's even worse. It's even more damaging than clearly see. It's behold fully, not you seen a part. You clearly seen everything that is there. If that's not damaging to the religious church, I don't know what is. For the invisible things of the move of God can be fully seen. Can be what? Look at the 2529 again. Can be beholden fully. Can be fully seen. I can add clearly seen too, because you can't fully see if you haven't clearly seen, if there's mist in your eyes, if there's fog before you, if there's a veil on your eyes, then you can't fully see. You're going to partially see. But that is not what this says. It says that we can totally see, clearly see stuff that is there for us. It even gets more damaging to the case of the religious church if you delve and understand what the root of this word is. Kathor ao. It's from 2596. If you'd go there with me. It is with which it is joined. Who sees that? It's a lot more damaging, brethren. It's a lot more damaging. What's the other word? 3708. Look towards it, please. The evidence is so plain. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to be diligent in seeking and looking up the original language. What is 3708? To discern clearly. To stare at. So what do we get? It's not just that you can clearly see the invisible things of God. That you can clearly see the invisible move of God that exists on the other side. You can clearly see it, and you can see it fully. On top of that, you can be joined to it while you look at it. You can be joined to it. You can be connected, experience a spiritual connection. I guess people wondering where Brother Sam come with this spiritual connection from. Well, it's there. It's right there for you to see and to know and to experience if you will submit to Jesus Christ. It says, for the invisible things, the invisible of the move, are clearly seen, fully seen, and we can be connected to those things that are invisible while we stare at them face to face. We can know them, we can experience them, and we can stare at them. You know what stare at them? It means it takes time. People stare at people and they don't know it's not manners. To stare at me, you stare at them, you can't take your eyes off of them. That's what this is talking about, that we can stare for a time at these invisible things of God, of the move of God. Who is there? For the invisible things of him are clearly seen from the creation of the world. If you look at, maybe you need to look at this word. 575, please. Apo, off, away from. When you get there, let me know. 575, please. O-F-F, off, away. This move of God, these invisible things are away from. What does it mean to be away from? The creation of the world. They're long time before. The invisible things that we see in the move of God on the other side took place long before the material creation. It's all there. You don't have to look at it. Who is seeing it? Being understood. Now, I want you to scratch out a couple of things, what I did in mine. It's up to you. Being, by, and even, they don't belong in the verse. Let's look at the Greek for 35, 39. It's noeo, to exercise the mind and to comprehend. When you see that 35, 39, let me know. I'm going to wait on you a minute or so. From the beginning of verse 20, because the invisible things of God, if you're too weak to deal with the fact of the invisible things of the move that took place before the material creation, can be clearly seen, beholden fully, and stared at while we are connected to those things. And we can exercise our mind in and understand what? The things that are made. Look at 41:61, please. Quickly if you can. Product. Who sees product? Fabric. A creation. Because the invisible things of God can be stared at while we are connected to those things, and we can exercise our mind, function, and understand the product, the creation, also which (50, 37 and 37, 39) is also which 8:48 is self, of himself. I want you to look at 126. It's a bit complicated, but we can get through it. 126, please, if you don't mind. Haheemah from 104. Who's there? 104 is ever. Ever during. Forward and backwards. Who sees that? Or forward only. It suggests the eternal power, ability, strength, force, and might of God. It's not Godhead, it's the divinity of God. I wonder if you're there with me. This Haheemah, this fact of the forward and backward, suggesting not just the move of the spiritual creation, but also the fact of the move of Christ as he moves backwards and forwards in the spiritual ages. He has free access to and fro in the spiritual ages. He is not restricted in any way in the spiritual ages, and we can experience that fact of Jesus moving to and from. We can experience and know and exercise the mind in all of these things. Let me just tell it to you one more time. Because the invisible things of God, since you may be too weak to deal with the move of God, because the invisible things of God can be clearly seen, beholden fully, or stared at while we are connected to those things, and we can exercise our mind and understand the creation, the spiritual creation, which also